Hello, fictional. Welcome to the Fiction Series X. Today we are gonna see, what if Issei bonded with the Symbiote Toxin? Part 2. If you end up liking this video, please consider subscribe, so without further ado, let's get into the video. Senpai, please be gentle with me. Issei's alarm clock sounded off. He opened his eyes and started moving a bit. He's still a bit tired from everything that happened yesterday. Issei got up and walked to his drawer and put on some underwear, because if yesterday had told him anything, it's that Toxin is still very childish and will not hesitate to seep back into him. Issei, can I have the chocolate cereal for breakfast? Toxin asked Issei. This thing could consume pounds and pounds of chocolate and still want more. Sadly, Toxin realized he didn't have the money to buy all of the chocolate he wanted. Thank God he realized he needed money. Alright, just don't eat the whole box in one go. One bowl of it. Issei then grabbed a small bowl for himself. Toxin, however, reached up to a higher shelf and grabbed a very large bowl. It was at least twice as big as his, and Issei facepalmed to Toxin's choices of a bowl. It seemed while Toxin did know some knowledge, he lacked all of his common sense. Toxin, please understand what I'm about to tell you. When I said one bowl, I meant that the bowls we use have to be the same size. Issei told the symbiote. It reluctantly put the larger bowl backhand and grabbed a smaller one. Issei poured the cereal for himself and Toxin, making sure to fill Toxin's bowl all the way, so he didn't have to suffer the embarrassment that the childish symbiote could make you feel. The sun had just started to come up outside, and Issei just watched it through the window of his kitchen while he ate. He admired the pretty rays it offered to the new morning and the opportunities it gave birth to. You gotta learn to love the simple things in life, Toxin, Issei told the symbiote as he finished eating his food. Toxin didn't understand, but also didn't know if it would be helpful to ask more about the subject, so he refrained for now. Toxin covered Issei's skin and morphed into the school uniform Issei wore. It was pretty helpful and could come in handy during many situations. Situations that probably wouldn't happen, but situations nonetheless. Issei figured he'd still have to apologize to the rest of the orc. Come to think of it, how did they get so strong to begin with? Kiba had a damn sword and Kaneko punched like Mike Tyson. Rias straight set the two on fire with some kind of magic. The dragon called Rias a devil last night, didn't he? Toxin chipped into Issei's thoughts. Would that mean she is the sworn enemy of the fallen angels and angels? I suppose so, but is everyone in the occult research club actually devil then? Issei continued thinking out loud. We can ask her right now if you would like, Toxin told the boy. What the fuck do you mean I can ask her right now? Well, you were looking out the window earlier, I was looking towards the door. I felt her presence the whole time. I would say she has been waiting out the door for us for quite a while now. Toxin informed his host. Issei ran around, grabbed his bag and made his way to his door. He opened it slowly and saw the one and only Rias' gremory yawning in front of his house. He walked out and closed his door loudly, catching her attention. Ah, I see that you're awake and ready for the morning. Rias smiled at him. I am. Were you out here long? Issei asked the girl, just to see what she'd say. I only got here a few minutes ago, I figured I'd wait and walk to school with a superhero, she giggled. Issei caught on that she lied about the first part, but only to be courteous. She had no other real means of contacting him at the moment. Does Rias have chocolate on her? Toxin asked instinctively. Issei sighed at Toxin's comment, but figured it might work out in his favor. Ah, Toxin is asking if you can give him any chocolate and perhaps your phone number too, Issei slipped in the last part a bit forcefully. Rias smirked at his attempt and pulled out a chocolate bar. Does Toxin have a bottomless stomach or something? Rias took the chocolate out of its wrapper and gave it to him. He is kind of a pig. He said, taking the chocolate from her. You take that back right now, or I'll tell her all about what you do to her in your perverted fantasies. Just take the chocolate please, I didn't mean it that way, Issei told it. A few red tendrils extended from his shirt and sleeves made their way to the chocolate in Issei's hand. After getting a good grip on it, the tendrils shot back into the clothing, taking the chocolate with them. Well, I suppose we should get to school then. Don't blame me if your reputation is tarnished because you were walking and talking to a mega perv, Issei smirked as he walked out of the gate to his house. He gestured for Rias to follow. Popularity at school isn't exactly something I'm too worried about, Rias told him. She began to walk next to him, getting curious about some things that had changed in the boy's daily life due to the new presence of the symbiote he now had. I'm curious, what does it feel like to wear a symbiote is like some sort of second skin? Rias asked, feeling a little curious about Toxin. Well, it feels kind of natural, I guess. It gives off a kind of warmth that no other clothes can hope to provide, and I always feel energized. Toxin can still give me extra strength in this too, something other clothes definitely can't provide. Issei answered the best he could. I'm still wondering about what happens to you if it's removed from you. Do you know? She asked again. I'm not exactly sure, but Toxin said the hosts of his ancestors went through withdrawal effects mixed in with accelerated aging. Issei explained. So it's like a drug then? Not quite exactly. Just super steroids mixed in with caffeine, adrenaline, and a living organism that desires chocolate, he said. So a living superdrug, got it, Rias smirked at the boy's explanation. The density of the crowds they encountered increased as they were making their way to the school, and with that so did the rumors. People were talking about the two left and right. Issei and Rias just kept walking and talking however. People talking about them, be it nice or naughty, wasn't exactly new to either of them. So Drake called you a devil last night. He told me some minor details about the Great War a long time ago. So, are you actually a devil then, like Drake said? Issei asked the crimson-haired girl. I am, she answered bluntly. What about the rest of the orc? Are they devils as well? Issei asked again. They are devils as well, she told him. Shouldn't you like burn in the sun or something? He asked stupidly. Haha, no we don't. We aren't vampires, well most of us aren't anyway, she laughed at his question. Damn, devils seem kinda cool I guess, Issei let out. Eventually they reached the school gates. The talking was at its peak and some people were literally going crazy because the two didn't mix in their heads. Issei after school there is a club meeting. I expect you to be there at the end of school sharp. Rias told the boy. I guess it's mostly my fault there's a meeting, right? Issei asked, starting to feel a bit guilty. For the most part yes, but there is other important matters we need to discuss at the club as well. She finished up. Well, bye-bye Issei. She shouted jogging away, the crowd following at her heel. Issei smiled and waved back at her. I guess I just have to make through the day without dying and I'll get to hang with the hot eye. Issei, you might have forgotten your homework when you left the house. Toxin informed the boy. What? Why didn't you tell me? Issei began shouting in his head. You quickly bolted out of the house and I was too preoccupied with Ria's chocolate to remember, sorry. Ugh, it looks like I won't survive the day I guess, Issei groaned. Locker room fun. Issei, why are we sneaking in the women locker room? We're sneaking in the women's locker because you asked me what I saw in women, so I'm gonna to show you. Issei responded casually. It was about lunchtime and the girls had a midday practice today. Issei made his way to his hotspot locker in the women's locker room. It was an empty locker so he had free reign on it and no other girl had ever noticed he was in here. Toxin could understand the base logic behind Issei's actions, but in his mind, the negatives greatly outweighed the positives. Issei didn't even think about the negatives unless they found him. Which wouldn't happen of course. Hopefully. Issei was now firmly in the locker and he heard the locker door opening. There was no turning back now. The future was upon him and the symbiote. Issei twitched with joy. The girls began flooding the room, shuffling about to get to their lockers. Issei was basically spasming now as the girls began opening their lockers. He almost couldn't contain himself. And then it happened. Jiggle. Bounce. Boing. Beautiful breasts at every corner in sight, varying in all shapes and sizes. From A to E, the room was filled. Issei didn't mind the difference in sizes at all, it made every set of breasts unique. I cannot see the full purpose of this activity, Toxin said truthfully to his host. Come on. Look at all of the sexy boobs. Issei continued spasming at the sight. I see them. They all have a voluptuous form, some seem firm, while others seem soft, and a select few must feel squishy. I guess I am starting to see it the way you do, Issei, though I cannot say I am proud of myself, Toxin said in Issei's head. Toxin. I'm so proud of you. Issei celebrated. Issei, watch out. While Issei looked out of the locker. Kaneko slammed her fist into the locker at full force. Issei had specifically requested Toxin not provide any defense or healing factor while at school to avoid suspicion. His newfound strength was already too suspicious in itself, though talk of it was starting to die down. Aya. Issei squealed like a little girl. Toxin didn't protect him from the pain, because he was at school. Kaneko ripped off the locker door and widened her eyes at who was inside. Issei was now sitting in the locker, clutching his probably bruised stomach on the verge of tears. She was already dressed and she ran out of the locker room. Issei looked up in tears at the girls. They were furious at him, obviously. One of them punched their open palm, signaling that Issei was going to suffer momentarily. And thus the Issei smackdown began. He was hit everywhere, but his face and balls were being targeted especially. This was the worst he had gotten his ass kicked in a while. Issei was eventually knocked unconscious by the never-ending blows. Life sucked for Issei without Toxin's defense mechanisms, but it was better than he didn't know anymore. It was coming close to the end of the school day and Issei was still unconscious. Issei Toxin was trying to get his host to wake up and this was the 20th time he had tried. He then thought of an idea and giggled as he reached into the sacred gear within his host's consciousness. There was Drag. He was sleeping as well, it seems. Toxin was able to wake up the dragon surprisingly, especially since he couldn't wake up a teenager. Why did you awaken me, Toxin? Drake looked at the symbiote. Can you wake Issei up? I have tried about 1,000,000 times, but still he won't wake up. Gray growled at the symbiote for waking him up from his nap. The dragon began inhaling, belly swelling, and he let loose a loud thundering roar. Issei. Aye. Issei screamed. He thought the girls were still upon him. After a second of silence he looked up to the locker room was empty. He looked around for a clock but he couldn't find one on the walls. How long was I out? Issei asked whoever was available in his head. 3 whole hours. And the school day is definitely over now, so you had better hurry to that club meeting you have to be at, or your future waifu will be mad at you. Toxin was mad at him for being asleep for so damn long. Oh shit. Issei remembered what Toxin was talking about and scoped out the locker room making sure not to get caught on the way out. Once he was out, Issei immediately ran to the old school building where the orc was. Hopefully not late so he upset Rias. Issei was surprised to see that there was no damage to the building. He vividly remembered throwing Rias through the wall, creating a large hole. Strange, he thought. He didn't have time to worry much about it though. He ran up the steps and burst through all the doors leading to the main room. He stopped before opening the last one and caught his breath. He straightened himself out and took one final deep breath before opening the door. Upon opening the door, he spotted the club members all on one side of the room. Akeno, Rias, Kaneko, and Kiba. On the other side of the room he saw a bunch of strange women. They obviously didn't go to his school, or else he would have seen them. In front of them he saw a tall blonde man in a suit. He was smirking at Rias. He looked over to see Issei at the door and his smirk changed to a frown. He put his open hand up pointing at Issei. Issei suddenly felt tingly everywhere, he had felt this before. He needed to move. Issei quickly fell flat on his face and he heard an explosion behind him. Riser missed a fly. This fly has good instincts it seems. Riser will kill him this time for sure. Issei looked up from the ground and at the guy. A fireball was growing in his hand and Issei was getting the super tingly sensation again. Toxin, school's over now. Put on the suit. Issei shouted. Toxin immediately mobilized as the blonde fired the fireball. Issei. Rias shouted as the fireball flew across the room at the boy. It was far too late for him to dodge now like last time. The fireball hit him dead on. Smoke and scorch marks filled the doorway. Smoke filled the doorway and the blonde man's frown turned itself upside down. It would seem Riser killed the fly. Thank goodness Riser stopped it before it interrupted something important, the blonde spoke. Rias looked to Riser. Riser, do you have any idea what you've just done? That's not just some ordinary human, sure he's a bit weak to fire, but oh no. Rias let out the last part under her breath looking back to the doorway. She had a small flashback to the day before and touched the bruises on her neck. Are you perhaps saying that that fly was the one who bruised your beautiful neck? Riser is even more satisfied that he exterminated this fly. Riser laughed. Ugh, I hate fire with a passion now. Are you prepared to suffer now, you stupid idiot? Toxin's voice echoed from the doorway. The smoke slowly lifted over Issei, now in the suit. Toxin's eyes were once again filled with malice and its face split open, revealing its many sharp teeth and tongue. The orc immediately took fighting stances against Toxin, fearful of a repeat from yesterday. Kiba and Kaneko were visibly shaking and Rias just took a few steps back and kept a hand on her neck. Calm down Toxin, this man isn't here to harm you or your host. Rias spoke to the symbiote at the doorway. Bullshit. Toxin shouted. He just fucking shot a fireball at us. What pit of hell did this disgusting creature come from? Riser asked Rias with a disgusted tone to his voice. Who are you the one to call disgusting, you egotistical bastard? Toxin shouted, walking into the room. This time Issei was partially in control. This time, someone had actually overstepped a boundary that didn't have to crossed. My name is Riser Phoenix, heir of the Phoenix family in the underworld, and you will take back that insult you said towards me, or I'll burn you to ashes. Riser said to Issei, stepping out of third-person mode for a second. Seems he was starting to get serious. Bring it on, bird brain, Issei said within the symbiote. Issei, calm down already. Rias shouted. You know what? Fine. I'll step down. There must be a more appropriate place to fight this guy, so later in the future I'll turn this person into literal pieces of bird shit and make him feel pain and I'll enjoy his painful screams of agony. There were mixed reactions of the club when Toxin made that comment. Akeno was bit excited but still terrified as she found out that Toxin is a bit of a sadist. The only people scared were the orc, but Riser scoffed at his comment. He definitely looked down on the boy. Riser'll turn you to ashes where you stand, boy. Riser yelled and stuck up his hand. Fire began swirling around it, gaining strength. However, his hand was frozen solid in an instant. A white magic circle appeared on the ground. A silver-haired maid slowly appeared through it. That is enough, Lord Riser. There will not be any violence while you are here. The new girl spoke. She looked around for a moment, scanning the room. Her eyes landed on Toxin. That couldn't be a could it? It's been so long, maybe I'm wrong, she talked to herself. Graffia, what's wrong? Rias asked. Graffia turned to her with a bit of worry on her face. Graffia, is it? Nice to meet you, Toxin greeted the maid. I never thought I would meet another symbiote. It is nice to meet you as well. Issei, and the symbiote is Toxin, Issei said, the suit slowly coming off of him, turning back into the school uniform. Toxin loves his chocolate, just for your information. That's all he needs as a gift, Issei told her. Chocolate huh? I'll make note of that then. Nice to meet you both, she said. Wait. You know about the symbiotes. How and why didn't you tell anybody about it? Rias asked her. A bunch of people knew the symbiote as well as his host. He was a Red Dragon Emperor, how could people not know him? It was just never put into the history books for the young ones. He and the symbiote left this world in a rather unfortunate way, which is why. Graffia explained. We never thought we would come into contact with another, since they generally stick to themselves after all. What was the symbiote's name? Toxin inquired. Ravage. Graffia responded to the symbiote. Anyways, I am here to give Rias a dilemma. She can either go ahead and marry Riser, or she can challenge him to a rating game and win her independence from him. We challenge you, Riser. Issei and Toxin said together. But they both had for different reasons for challenging him. Toxin wanted some major payback for trying to burn him and his host, while Issei wanted to save Rias from this overcooked chicken. This is up to Rias, if she wished to include you in her as a part of her peerage, then she will be granted special allowance, since she does not yet hold a full peerage. Graffia told the two. Rias, allow us to fight with you, against this fried chicken. Issei asked the crimson-haired beauty across the room. If you promise not to go berserk then I will allow you to come. Graffia, I officially challenge Riser Phoenix to a rating game for my hand in marriage. Rias said firmly. If Toxin were able to completely shut her peerage down, then he would be a huge upper hand against this stupid bird brain. Granted. Rias, you have a few days to prepare for the fight against Riser. You may do anything you wish in this time period, Graffia told her. Lord Riser, take your leave. You may see Rias' face again when you are on the battlefield. Fine, Riser said as he turned around. His own magic runes appeared below him and his peerage, and they lit up in flame before disappearing. Graffia turned to the orc. It was nice to see you again, sister, and it was nice to meet you too, she said turning to Issei. I will take my own leave. I wish you luck against him. She disappeared in the same light she had came into the room with. Well, that was the second most interesting club meeting we've been to. I personally though it was more interesting when I beat you guys up, but this is pretty good too. Are all clubs this fun? Toxin monologued. Dude shut up, Kiba told the symbiote. Take this seriously, Toxin, or we'll get kicked out of the club, Issei joined in with Kiba. What am I supposed to do? I don't even have a full peerage for a rating game. I only have one queen, one knight and one rook. And my bishop won't come out of the damn closet, Rias was thinking. She made her way to her desk. She thought for a minute while Issei began his apologies to the rest of the orc. Listen. Issei started. Things definitely got out of hand yesterday. I would just like to apologize for all of that, and I would like to make things up if I could. Look, you and Toxin can apologize after we save the president from Riser. Kiba told him. About apologies, I'm sorry for punching you today, pervert, Kaneko spoke up. Don't worry about it, Kaneko. I'm just happy I was able to save you yesterday, Issei smiled at her, reaching to pet her. She let him and her rubbed her head for a second, surprising Akeno and Kiba. Well, nobody has ever done that without getting the crap beat out of them, Kiba let out. Look like Issei has a new admirer, Akeno said. Issei finished petting Kaneko and sat down. Issei let out a sigh. Today has been long. He got the crap beat out of him, almost fried some chicken, and did some never done befores. But that would just become the usual, he guessed. Rias still looked busy as she pulled out a book and began writing some things in it, while comparing it to some other things. Well, Issei, I think we'll never have a normal life. We'll be a superhero to the normal people, and now we'll be a superhero to the supernatural as well. Toxin said. Don't remind me, Issei groaned. He hadn't done much for the supernatural yet, but it was only a matter of time in his head. Alright, let's get down to business. It's time to discuss the original purpose of this meeting. Rias said. Her voice echoed through the room. Everybody turned their attention to the girl. Alright. So our first mission by the Red is look for suspicious activity around the area. That is exactly what we are doing. Issei said to Toxin mentally as they were walking. They were just patrolling the area. He had been sent to the areas surrounding the church, since he wasn't a devil, he could stand the worship of God. Issei, I sense something familiar with this area. Toxin informed the boy. What do you sense? Issei asked, curious on what the symbiote was feeling. It's the fallen angels, and from what I can tell, there are more than just two of them. Toxin could clearly feel the corrupted blood he had encountered a few times before. Then that means I can find you, Uma. Issei shouted out loud, looking around. Where are they, Toxin? From what I can tell, somewhere in or around the church on that hill. Toxin directed the boy to his destination. Toxin wanted his host to get some form of revenge, since the fallen angel his host encountered would have killed him if Toxin hadn't found and saved him. But in all honesty, the symbiote couldn't hate her either, because if she didn't almost kill him, woe's to say what would have happened to Toxin. Issei ran off to the church, firm on his decision to find and question Yuma. Issei put on the suit to camouflage himself as he approached the building. Upon arriving, he saw that all of the windows on the old worn-down church were either open or there just weren't any glass or frame to them at all. He got up close to the building and decided to wall-crawl to one of the windows. He took a peek inside of the church. Upon inspection, he only saw one person inside the building itself. He was a priest-like dude with a glowing sword drawn. He looked rather bored, to be honest. Why do I be here doing this boring lookout job when they could have sent a subordinate to do it instead? The man sighed. Toxin, where are the fallen angels? I don't see any, Issei asked inside his head. There are few I'm not quite familiar with roaming around outside, but the two I am familiar with seem to be underground. There should be an entrance to a basement somewhere in there, I'm guessing. Perhaps that man down there know how to get down there. Alright, then I'll ask him. Issei crawled in the window and made his way above the man and stuck some symbiote webbing to the support he was on and slowly came down. The man had his eyes closed and had no idea Issei was even in the building. He opened his eyes right as Issei got down to him. Issei was upside down and scared the shit out of the exorcist. Hello. It's me, your friendly neighborhood Toxin. The man swung his sword and cut the webbing above Issei, and the two fell. Toxin flipped over and landed on his feet. I'd like it if you could answer a few questions, please. Toxin finished. The man looked angry now, but a smile came across his face. Why is there a stray devil in the church? You are very unlucky to encounter me. The man said, grinning his teeth out. I'm not a devil, I'm a superhero. Haven't you seen me on the news? I'd like a few words with Arainer, I think she's officially called. If you could direct me to her, then I'd happily be on my way. Issei told the man. I'm Fried Selzen, and if you aren't a devil, then why are you covered in their stench? Fried asked the boy. I beat the crap out of some devils yesterday, and then we asked them questions today, Toxin told him. Oh my. A devil hater too. Fried yelled. Huh? Well, I'm not quite a devil hater. I just had a bad experience with them. Twice actually. Toxin responded to Fried's strange hate comment. Well then fine. Rainer is downstairs, but we are kind of in the middle of a ceremony right now. We are extracting the sacred gear of an evil woman. Fried told the two and pushed the large statue behind him a bit, revealing a stairway downstairs. This looks too easy, what's his game? Issei thought as he walked down the stairs and waved to Fried. Fried just scoffed and closed the entrance behind him. Issei kept walking down and saw candles lighting the edge of a doorway. There wasn't a door or anything, it was just a place a door could fit. There should probably be a door there, to be honest. Issei got to the bottom and saw through the entryway. Rainer was in front of a cross that a blonde girl had been tied to. To be honest, she looked pretty innocent and she was definitely in pain. The other fallen angel was off to her side and was leaning against the wall. It was same one Issei had beat down next to the fountain yesterday. He looked to be better somehow, but he wasn't sure how exactly. Littered out before the two were about a dozen or so exorcists. Issei called back, the symbiote covering his face. Uma. Issei called out. She looked back in surprise. What? This is a surprise. I didn't expect I'd ever meet the pervert that I killed again. She yelled back to boy. She made a gesture with her hands and the exorcists all suddenly rushed at Issei. Toxin shot out the arms of his suit straight down the middle of the room and pushed all of the exorcists aside in an instant. He then glued them to the wall with his arms before calling them back. Yummer Rainer or whatever your name is, I will get the answer to my questions. Why? Why kill Issei? Why break his heart and murder him in cold blood? Toxin called out, recovering Issei's face. So you're the thing that nearly killed Donosik here, huh? I see you are just like what I picked up after I thought I killed Issei, she smirked at him. My name is Toxin, a name I'll make you remember. You'll pay for being a bad girlfriend, woman. Oh no. I'm terrified. She laughed at the symbiote. Donosik, go get revenge. Donosik didn't waste a second, immediately flying to Issei. But sadly, this would just be a repeat of last time. Donosik threw a great deal of light spears and occasionally got in close to try and pierce and cut the boy. He missed every attempt. Come on, this isn't just practice anymore. I thought you would turn it up a notch now that this is the real deal. Issei yelled at the fallen angel. Donosik got up close again and shot his arm out once again, trying to stab the boy, but they grabbed his arm, now done playing games. He summoned another light spear in his other hand, impaled Issei's right arm and drove it into his chest. I really wish we could feel the pain of this. It'd be interesting. Toxin whimpered. Well, you got your hit in, now it's my turn, Issei said as his right arm began growing to a huge size. The light spear inside was quickly crushed and Issei grabbed Donosik with his now humongous hand. He squeezed slightly, putting a large amount of pressure on the man's skull. Issei quickly dropped the spear in the other hand and began struggling, trying desperately to remove the hand from his skull. A large crack noise was heard, and the fallen angel grew limp. Pop. Toxin's mouth was now visible again and it was smiling very widely. He eased up the pressure emitting from his hand and shook the fallen angel. He wiggled a bunch in response. Just kidding, that was just his jaw shattering. He won't be eating solid food ever again I think. They dropped the fallen angel, and the head was very visibly still intact. Issei quickly checked for the man's pulse. It was there. The act was enough to scare Rainer into wetting herself. She was vividly shaking after witnessing the two utterly dominate her strongest subordinate. They broke his jaw for almost no reason, except that he fought him. She wasn't much stronger, and after she almost killed the boy, what would they do to her? Issei got up from Donosik and began walking to Rainer. She collapsed onto her knees and started begging. Oh God. Please don't kill me, Issei. I'm sorry for stabbing you in front of the fountain, I'm so sorry. Rainer shouted her pleas, starting to cry. I'll do anything you ask, so please just spare me. I never planned on killing you, dummy, Issei said. He called back the suit and they morphed into some casual clothes with some flip-flops. First off, what's up with her? I'm pretty sure you should let her go now. Issei told the girl. Rainer got up and undid the restraints of the blonde. Rainer took her off of the cross. Is she alive? Issei asked, since the girl was unconscious. Yes she is, we had only barely started before you came in, Issei, Rainer stuttered a bit while answering him. Good. I guess I have to move on to you now, Issei said turning to Rainer. Yes, she answered terrified, still visibly shaking. Calm down already, sheesh. I'm a superhero now, so I can't let myself get absorbed in hatred. I already know I probably made a mistake breaking that guy's jaw back there, but I can't sensibly hurt a defenseless woman you know. Issei said proudly. We literally did that 2 days ago, Issei, Toxin reminded his host. Eric, shut up Toxin, not now. Issei yelled at the floor. I didn't think about it before, but you're actually pretty nice, even after I did that horrible thing to you, but I'm still scared of you quite a bit, Rainer let out. Partner, I sense the devils are here. The gauntlet formed on Issei's left hand. It had a new form this time, it extended further up his arm and looked more sleek. It also had another emerald gem in the middle of his forearm. Oh well, I guess we had better get going, Issei wondered how Rias would react to his decisions. That was your sacred gear, Rainer yelped. Azazel will kill me if he finds out I did this. Yep, it's the boosted gear, and don't worry. I won't let anybody kill you. But Issei hesitated for a second. Rainer took a gulp. If you ever pull something like you that night at the fountain, I won't hesitate to send you to that Azazel guy, Issei finished. He was definitely serious about this. Oh, and one more thing, Issei said picking up the blonde girl and putting her on his shoulder. I'm afraid I have to break up with you, dummy, Issei flicked Rainer on her forehead. Issei ran up the stairs leading back into the church's main center of prayer. He called out Toxin to his free hand and pushed the statue covering the stairway open. In his other arm was a petite blonde girl who was wearing a tattered nun's outfit. Issei made his way into the room, with Rainer following close behind, trying not to upset the boy. There was blood that hadn't been there when Issei originally arrived, and Issei found Kiba in a pile of the broken benches and Kaneko sitting up against a wall. Kiba was unconscious, and Kaneko seemed as though she was about to pass out. Hey. What happened here? Where did the guy go? Issei asked Kaneko running up to her. She looked up to him in relief. He ran away, but he got us good before we forced him out, Kaneko said trailing off. She closed her eyes, signaling that she had passed out. Damn, Issei let out. He picked her up with his free arm. Rainer, go get Kiba and carry him out. I don't think being in this place is good for them at all. Issei walked up to the main doors and kicked them open. One of the doors flew straight off the hinges. Rainer got startled and almost dropped Kiba as she was picking him up. Oh shit, I overdid it, Issei said to himself, looking at the broken door now laying on the grass about a yard away. Don't worry, Issei, people will think it just broke, since this place looks like it hasn't been in use for a long time, Toxin tried to reassure his host. Issei walked outside and looked around. He didn't see anyone, and it was a bit windy, so he wasn't sure if any noises just meant the wind or actual people. Toxin, do you have a red on Rias and Akeno? Issei asked the symbiote. I believe the girls are deep in the brush in an area towards your left. Toxin responded to the boy. Alright then, let's make sure there aren't any misunderstandings. Issei said as he began to pick up his pace. He was running at an adequate speed and saw Rainer easily flying above him. He groaned a bit and tried to pick up his pace to match hers. After a minute or so, Issei heard a scream in front of him. He began to run as fast as he could. Wait up. Issei yelled. He cleared the brush and ran into an opening, spotting Rias and Akeno in front of two fallen angels that were new to him. One had long blue hair and had large breasts, and she was taller than Rainer. The second was a short girl that had short blonde hair and twintails, and had small breasts. "Don't hurt anybody," Issei said in between breaths. He wasn't quite used to running while carrying extra people. "Issei, what happened to Kaneko? And who's that other girl over your shoulder?" Rias asked, looking over to him. "I came from the church, I don't know her name, but I can't just leave her." "Rainer, you can go ahead and land now," Issei finished. His obedient fallen angel landed behind him. She thankfully hadn't dropped Kiba. "Issei, what is she doing here?" Rias yelled, now confused. "She was about to take this girl's sacred gear in the church, and if you must know, she owes me for being a bad girlfriend and for killing me on our first date. Besides, I just dumped her," Issei told the girls. "Oh, that's a burn, Rainer," the blue-haired fallen angel smirked, looking over. "Shut up, Kalwerner, he annihilated Donosik in that basement," Rainer shouted back at the girl. "He did? You're not telling me he wiped out all of those exorcists and then beat the shit out of Donosik, are you?" The twin-tailed fallen angel screeched in surprise. She actually fell on her butt in the surprise. "I did, so nobody hurt each other. I've done enough fighting today, I think." He was tired and he wanted the day to be over already. "So, what do you guys want to do?" "I can keep going if need be," Issei glared at the crowd in front of him. "Oh my, I'm shivering," Akeno let out, shaking. She wasn't scared though, she actually seemed to be in pleasure from the threats. No thanks, I'm good," Kalwerner replied to Issei. "But Rainer, what will you do when Kakabiel finds out you defected?" "I don't have a clue. I don't exactly have anywhere to go, expect a place with Issei." "Harry deed, maybe you can have the nun and these fallen angels help out in your game against the chicken man." Toxin threw an oddball out. "How?" "By making them my servants." Rias was intrigued by the symbiote suggestion. It would certainly give her a few more cards up her sleeve. Maybe she'd have to reward him later. "Exactly," Toxin concluded. "Hold up, who says we'll become this devil's servants?" Middlet was clearly in defiance. "Well, if you don't become her servant, we'll hand you over to your leader, Governor General Azazel, for your multiple counts of treason, and you can deal with him instead." Issei answered her in a giddy tone. "If you try anything and run or attack us, we'll be motivated to intervene." Toxin then extended his hands out from Issei, and they grew, his fingers of the suit extend and curved out to make large sharp claws. "I'd say this dilemma is very clear. Do you prefer life or death?" Issei concluded the talking stage. And thus began the next stage of the night. Issei arrived home with new guests. He had a few fallen angels in tow. The church was pretty demolished, and their corrupt leader Kakabiel would no doubt come looking for them there, so they decided to try and find somewhere safe to live. Rainer tried to grab Issei by the shoulder to properly apologize for what she had done, however her hand immediately retracted as many red spikes popped out of his left shoulder. Toxin clearly didn't favor the woman right now. "Hey, don't be rude to my guest now, bud," Issei nagged on Toxin. "Can I talk to the Raven girl for a minute, alone?" Toxin asked Issei about Rainer. Issei reluctantly agreed and Toxin covered his body. He had some ground rules and other words for the ex-girlfriend. "Look here, Rainer. Issei might have agreed to let you and your friends live in his house, but don't you dare take this for granted. I'm sure you already know he is very forgiving of people who have done bad things to him in the past, like a proper superhero would do. I, on the other hand, will not be so forgiving. You broke my host's heart and flushed very unnerving emotions in him, and if you so much as harm him, or his family, or anyone that he loves in his heart, I will make you suffer the same pain he felt that night at the fountain. If you already know you cannot follow these simple rules, I suggest you leave this property now. Did I make myself clear?" Toxin asked the girl. "Yes, Toxin, I understand," Rainer gulped. She was afraid of this creature that was on Issei. If this was a result of what that goo she found at the fountain, what could the black version of that stuff do? "I must say I never thought I would encounter something so scary. It's exhilarating just being up close," Kalwerner said as she made a note to herself not to get on Toxin's bad side. "That goes along with you two as well, don't double-cross me, and I won't bite back twice as hard. We won't disobey, we swear." Both Kalwerner and Middle pledged at the same time. "I have a question. Rainer found a black goo that covers things like you at the fountain. Do you know anything of what it could be?" Middle asked scaredly. "The black symbiote?" Toxin questioned. "Ah, yes, we kept it contained and sent it up to Azazel to maintain goodwill. He loves his research after all," Middle pitched in. "My father shouldn't have given birth to a second symbiote, certainly not at the same time as his first child at least, so it must be a defining piece of my grandfather, Venom," Toxin concluded. "If you would," Toxin extended his hand, tendrils extending from it. They hesitated for a moment, but they ended up touching the from inside its conscience flowed to the girls' minds. What they were shown was a large black muscular figure with a white spider on the center of its chest. The face was monstrous as it had large white curved eyes and razor-sharp fangs, as well as a long red tongue hanging out of his mouth, all somewhat similar to Toxin's features when he got serious. Alright Toxin, I think they get the picture. Issei took control. The symbiote retracted from the girls and retook the shape of the clothes he was wearing. It's late, so let me show you our spare rooms, Issei told the girls and walked upstairs. The girls followed close behind him. I guess my parents are already asleep, Issei said under his breath. He didn't have to worry about curfew today, thankfully. Issei led them to two basic rooms that had been mostly untouched. Each had a king-size bed and an assortment of other furniture. We choose between these two then? Kalawiner asked. Issei nodded in return. Oh, but what if we want to sleep with you, Issei Middle said, making a suggestive pose. What? Hey you little runt, you took my idea. I would thought Toxin would make you piss yourself standing. Kalawiner began to argue with Middle. Toxin is actually nice and cool, and look at Issei. He's so cute, Middle retorted. They kept on arguing. What did you do? Why did I somehow gain a harem? Issei asked the symbiote in his head. Things were suddenly more confusing after he spoke to them. I don't know. I laid out ground rules and stuff. It would seem only Rainer is still afraid, Toxin answered. What makes you think that you can sleep with Issei? Middle argued with Kalawiner. She gained a smirk and simply said. I have two special soft pillows that I know he would love to rest on. You on the other hand are flat as a washboard. Kalawiner stated as she crossed her arms under her breasts and made them go up slightly. Would you two shut up? Rainer cut in. Obviously I'm the one who gets to sleep with him because I was his first girlfriend. Never mind, none of them are frightened of us, Toxin said internally. As if you of all people could get close to Issei. Toxin would throw you out the window if you tried. Kalawiner retorted. Break it up. Issei shouted. The girls quickly turned their attentions to him. If you want to sleep with me, there are requirements. You must sleep naked. Issei said confidently, sure that they would finally shut up. That was the whole idea, dummy. They shouted in unison at him. The plan quickly backfired on Issei. He was now blushing like a madman and turned around and ran to his room while the girls seemed to have reached a conclusion. I guess we can share him, for now. Rainer told the other girls before following the boy and stripping off pieces of clothing all along the way. Well, this is an odd turn of events, Toxin stated as chaos unfolded on top of him. Breasts were bouncing left and right and Issei tried to cower in his bed. His attempt was lost, however, as the girls all jumped on him and began to squeeze the boy tight. You're absolutely right about that. Issei agreed with Toxin while finding out he could barely breathe with the girls squeezing him. Yuga teenage boy groaned, waking up. He felt heavy for some reason. Issei Hyoudou opened his eyes to raven black hair and a pretty face above him. Hey Rainer, the only boy in bed, mumbled to the girl above him. It's time to wake up, Issei said gently to the girl on top of him. He blinked a few times and looked around. The other girls were latched onto his sides and were gripping him fairly tight for a pair of sleeping beauties. He turned his attention back to the girl on top of him. Hey, Issei said, this time raising his voice at the girl. She squinted and started moving on top of him before settling down in a new position. A tick mark grew on the boy's forehead. He had the stuff to do and needed this girl off of him. Boy. Issei yelled at the top of his lungs. Rainer quickly fumbled around on top of the boy and managed to sit upright. The other girls actually fell off of the bed on both sides. They scrambled to get up to listen to the boy as well. Get off of me, will ya? He groaned at the raven-haired girl on top of him. Wait a second, Issei thought to himself as he got a better look at the girls. They're all naked. What? A giant blush grew on his face as he stared at the different sets of breasts around the room. Since when were they naked? Issei thought to himself. He remembered closing his eyes at the incoming barrage of women last night, so he never even got a glance at the girls in the room. Rainer giggled at Issei's blush and felt a growing bulge beneath her. Oh. Are you sure I should get off now? She teased, grinding her hips against the boy's pants. Last night they had ripped off the boy's shirt, but his pesky symbiote advised them not to do anything more, lest they wanted to sleep 6 feet under instead of in the bed. They reluctantly obliged to its demands and let the boy sleep peacefully for the time being. Issei's mouth was shaking as he struggled to think of any words he could possibly say in response to her. The other girls caught his attention, making their way back into the bed. Rainer began softly rubbing her finger across his chest, making circles as the other girls started stroking his arms. The boy was at a complete loss for words. He was an utter virgin and had no idea how to react in this very sensual situation going on. Rainer's free hand made its way up the boy's chest, smoothing, rubbing its way up his neck and onto his jaw. She brought her thumb down to his chin, tracing his jaw along the way, and brought it up to his lips. She smoothly rubbed it along his lips with a smirk on her face. In a swift motion, she grabbed his chin with her index finger and thumb and leaned in close to the boy's face. Her breasts planted themselves on his chest. All of the girls were leaning in very close to him now, and Rainer closed her eyes and extended her lips towards his. Is this how I lose my virginity, and my first kiss is coming in no more than a few seconds? His mind was lit up in his fueled passion, slowly but surely awakening the other creatures in his head. Issei, what on earth is going on? A voice echoed in the boy's head. Issei couldn't hear the voice since he was a tad distracted. The girl's face above him was drawing closer and closer. The boy couldn't contain himself and shut his eyes as hard as he couldn't wait for this special moment. Issei quickly became confused. Her lips should be on his right now, at least at the pace she was going. He opened his eyes slowly and saw Rainer shaking slightly and looking towards his door. It was open, which could only mean bad things. Standing at the doorframe was his father. He entered his son's room to tell him that breakfast was ready. But when he entered the room, he saw 3 naked women all mounted upon Issei. There were multiple things going through his head while trying to assess the situation in front of him. First off, it looked like his son was extremely lucky. He didn't just have 1 girl in his bed, but had 3 women at the same time. Second off, he was just overall shocked at the amount of bare ass he was seeing. Not many men see this sight in real life. Third, he wasn't sure whether or not to be proud that his son had bedded 3 women, disappointed that his son had done something so outrageous. Either of the two still factored in the jealousy that his son had accomplished something he couldn't even dream to achieve in all of the long years he had lived. Issei let out any kind of sound to help him explain himself, but his father stopped him. "We'll talk about it at the breakfast table, son." He shut the door and Issei heard footsteps leading away. Issei and the girls stared at the closed door for a moment. You know what? I give up, let's just get ready." Issei moved himself out of his bed and internally woke up Toxin. The symbiote grumbled slightly before stretching itself to cover its host. The symbiote then took the form of the boy's school clothes and changed color to match. The girls oohed and awed as the symbiote did the job. Issei had gotten used to the process. Issei turned around and looked at the girls. "Do you guys perchance have any chocolate?" he asked seriously. I don't have any," Middle threw out. Me either. Rainer joined after her. "I might have some with my stuff in the other room. I can go look if you need me to." "What do you need it for?" Rainer stretched out herself and got out of the bed slowly. Her breasts jiggled slightly, drawing Issei's eyes before he answered her. Toxin needs it or he'll die, plus he just likes it," Issei said, still staring at her boobs. "What?" the 3 girls said in unison. Issei sounded quite a bit stupid. This drew his attention up from the bouncing goodness and corrected himself. "I mean, there's this chemical in it that he needs to stay in good shape." "Well, he had chocolate yesterday, so he should be fine." Toxin took offense. "No," he blurted out. "I'm dying, get the chocolate, girl." The school uniform jiggled in accordance with the symbiote's unhappiness. "I'll go get it." Rainer made her way for the hallway. The other girls got out of bed and made their way to put on their own clothes. Middle giggled as Issei watched her bend over. "Pervert," she said aloud, looking him in the eyes. He blushed and made a strange sound before hurrying out of his own room. Toxin was happily fed chocolate as Issei sat down with his parents at the dinner table. Cuddled up next to him were 3 girls. "Well, I'll start off with introductions. I guess this is Rainer, Middle, and Rainer." Issei pointed to each one as he stated their names. Issei's parents were somewhat shocked at the sudden revelation. "Well, if I have to say anything, it's that I'm proud of you, son." His father held out a thumbs up, holding back tears at his son's great achievement. "That's the conclusion he settled on anyway. You better bless us with some grandchildren soon, you know." Issei's mom looked at Issei with a stern face that didn't match the words that came out of her mouth. "The FFT. Haha." The fallen angels laughed away. "Well, I guess that settles that," Issei said. His dad nodded. He had support from his parents, so that was okay, but it shouldn't be. We have an errand to run today, so can we go out?" Issei asked. "Well, I was hoping to spend some time with the girls and get to know them, but I suppose that can wait until later," Issei's mom told him. "Well, it will only take a little bit. You'll have all night, I promise." Issei stood up and the girls followed suit. They left the house without trouble, which was a decent way to start off the day. As for the errand, the girls were going to the old school building for a meeting with Rias to induct them as devils to help her fight against the Chicken Man. We walked in the building to Rias and Kuoh. The others weren't in sight. Toxin jiggled a bit because it would seem the girls here have prepared a treat for him. A few kinds of chocolate candy lied sprawled out on the coffee table. "Alright dude, chill out. You'll get to eat it in a minute." Toxin wiggled in discontent with Issei. The girls all laughed a bit at this. "Now, if you don't mind, let's begin the ceremony." Rias started, gathering the 3 of them before her and Kuoh. Kuoh revealed the chess set with glowing red pieces. Rias took off of the board 4 pawns. She gave 2 of them to Rainer and 1 to Rainer and 1 more to Middle. The 2 had a small bit of jealousy that Rainer had gotten 1 more piece than them, but they got over it fairly quick. "Now, place the pieces against your chests." They did as they were told. As they held the pieces against them, Rias started chanting quietly. She stuck out her arm with an open hand and a magic circle appeared. The pieces glowed from within their hands. Now, do you consent to become my servant, for better or for worse? Rias looked at the three. I consent. The three voices gave themselves away together. Very well. Rias clenched her fist, and the girls grunted. The pawns inserted themselves into the chests of the girls. The magic circle slowly faded and the room became quiet, filled with only deep breaths. The quiet was interrupted by Toxin making sounds of excitement as he had reached the chocolate at last. You little. I told you to wait for like 10 minutes. With this, Toxin slipped completely off of Issei, leaving him nude in the open room. Ah! Issei screamed as he attempted to cover himself as he ran into the restroom. The girls laughed heavily as Toxin continued to slowly consume the flavorful chocolate on the table with no relative form. Now Toxin, you have to be nice to Issei. After all, if it weren't for him, you'd have been stranded with no way to get chocolate at all. Akeno bent over to tell the symbiote. It bubbled up slightly in a disappointed kind of agreement. Now, if I see you being nice to Issei, I'll be sure to get you some more chocolate next time I see you. Akeno told the symbiote. He bubbled positively before sliding under the restroom door to Issei. End of the part 2. So how was this story? I hope you like it. And if you like it, share this story with your friends and like the video too. And don't forget to subscribe our channel for daily awesome fanfiction. Okay, it's time for me to go. Bye bye.